Here goes the intro. Let Lily lick Lionel's lusty leathers. Let Lily lick Lionel's lusty leathers.
It's lusty leathers.
Those leathers are fucking lusty. What the fuck? This is so weird. I'm not gonna get into it.
What up, nerds? Welcome to a very special, elevated episode of Straight Chilling. My name is Bob, and I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 207, recorded on Wednesday, March 27, 2019. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Jordan Peele's latest, Us. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show tonight. First up, calling in from Santa Barbara, California, Randy Gandy G. Landy.
Hello, kind, fine people of elevated horror fanship. Welcome to our elevated horror podcast. I'm currently sitting 6,000 feet above the ground, and I've never felt more elevated in my entire life.
We podcast live from Air Force One, mid-flight only. That's how we do it.
That's
I don't know how Justin's in there because he lives in Korea. Speaking of, last but not least on the show, calling in from Southern Korea, Soju.
What up? It's your boy, Spruce Willis Stains, checking in.
What?
I'm sorry, was that Bruce Willis or Spruce Willis?
That's your boy, Spruce Willis. That's my fairy name. That's a throwback.
Don't recall that one.
You
I
don't?
remember it, but I don't remember where it came from.
Spruce
Yes.
Willis.
So on our Slack channel, somebody was, I think it was actually a Bob joke. They're like, oh, this Bob joke's cracking me up. And they're like, it's throwback episode like 108 or something. So I was like, I don't need to hear that joke. So I listened to it. And it was my fairy name. It was Spruce Willis Stains. And I forgot about that shit too. And I thought that shit was hilarious.
Spruce Willis. That sounds like a Die Hard Christmas themed cover band.
My
I don't know
boy
what they're
Spruce
covering, but
Willis.
they're
It was
covering
it was my fairy name apparently, which that shit, I don't know. It was cracking me up though. I had to bring it back. Full circle.
I like it.
And
I
that was
always knew
about
you were a
100.
fairy.
That was about 100 episodes ago. What episode is this?
This is 207. So yeah,
Once
207. I think it was like 108. So yeah,
once every
100 ago.
centennial, the Spruce Willis rises from the crypt.
Dude, he's blooming.
We got the great pumpkin over here. The great spruce.
Spruce
Your boy
Willis.
Spruce.
Most action-packed fucking Korean world.
Gracious. Gentlemen, we have kind of a lot of housekeeping to cover. Let's jump into it real quick,
it.
actually. Just another reminder, the April poll pick is posted on our Patreon page. So if you support us at the $5 level or above, you can vote on a movie we're going to talk about this April. The theme for the month of April is movies that fooled us, and the three movies that are up there for you to vote between are The Boy, American Psycho, and Saw. And you have through Sunday to vote on that because this coming Monday is April 1st. So get on it, people. American Psycho is still in the lead. Still
And
in
a
the lead
new
so far.
a new poll pick coming your way too in like 3 days.
I don't know. Can we even do American Psycho? It's not a horror movie, according to idiots.
You're right. It's a crime drama.
It's a crime drama. It's an elevated crime drama, Rob. Let's not
Save
sell it
Save
short.
it for the cast, Randy.
We're recording, man.
Man.
My main bang. Also, real quick shout out to our brand new, lovely, succulent patron, Rage Cat. Thank you for supporting us, Rage. I love the name Rage.
Thank you. You're so succulent, apparently. Good
yeah.
Lord. Rob's just
we got all-
seducing Patreons now.
Naming things after plants, just our thing now.
Rob just whored himself out. That's how he does.
Sorry. I've only been a sellout, really. This isn't new.
Yeah, we need to really start selling out. Like I've said it many times, but like I'm like committed to the idea now.
We need to get a conspiracy named after us or some shit, so we can start like we need to be flat earthers or something and be giving out bumper stickers for $5 a pop or some shit.
Yeah. Also, we need to get our whole cereal baron thing off the ground as well. We've got all these like things in the mix, and it's just never. We just really need to commit.
We're full of ideas, bro. We just got all these ideas. All we need is a little more cocaine, and we'll get there. We're gonna get there.
I live on a rhombus. It's flat in certain areas. Fucking whatever. Anyway, Rage, thanks again for supporting the show, man. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah,
it
thanks,
means
man.
a lot, and it helps a lot. It really does. Helps more than you might realize. So we announced last show that the $10 level on the Patreon page was open for BizNass.
Not long.
Which is the level that allows you to pick a movie for us to review, and there's only 5 spots per quarter. Them bitches were snatched up in like 12 hours or something.
It legit was like, oh, there it goes. Like legit after the episode was posted, like there goes 3.
Right off the bat.
I was like,
shits
oh
weren't
my
even
God.
cooled off yet.
I know.
Pretty impressive.
Which is crazy.
We're very
awesome.
grateful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for making us want to watch things like that. Here's the thing. That notion 1 year ago was laughable to us.
Yeah.
Like nobody's ever gonna want to do that.
How much? 50 cents? Quarter? Let's do a quarter. See how it goes.
Yeah, but that's super cool that they all got snatched up. And there's a lot of stuff that was chosen that I've never seen. So, like stuff that I've never even heard of, actually.
Yeah.
So
people are digging deep, for better and for worse.
Outside the norm. Yeah.
Good.
I'm
good.
excited about it. There is a Joe Bob. Joe Bob's coming back.
There's a Joe Bob.
There's a Joe Bob, aka Dick Bibbs.
Dick
coming
Bibbs,
back,
rolling
coming back
in.
to Shudder.
I hope he never finds out we call him that.
I hope he does. I bet he appreciates that. Everybody appreciates a good nickname. Okay?
I think it's going to take at least like a good 5 minutes of place setting for him to appreciate that. I don't know.
I feel like he'd be indifferent.
Okay. You need to find that episode, Richard Bibbs. Just call him Richard.
I think that name came from you just not really knowing what the fuck.
I don't think there's much history. Fucked it up.
Richard, what's his who?
Dick Bibbs. Yeah.
Anyway, Joe Bob's coming back to Shudder this Friday and the following 8 consecutive Fridays. He's doing a double feature for 9 weeks in a row. And we're gonna do this thing this Friday for the first time. We've never done this before. We're gonna host a live watch of Joe Bob on Shudder via the platform Rabbit, which it's a free platform. Basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna post a link to our live watch party on our Facebook page 20 minutes or so before Joe Bob goes live. Which the show starts at 9, so we'll post a link around 8:40 or so Eastern Standard Time. And all you got to do is follow that link, and you'll be able to watch Joe Bob and chat with us and whoever else happens to be watching it as well. So we're gonna have a little back and forth while watching some Joe Bob, and it should be fun. And if this platform works out well, we're gonna try and do it every week actually. So
our council has advised that we issue this disclaimer. You are not allowed to join us unless you are a Shudder subscriber. Please be a Shudder subscriber. Don't steal things. It's bad, and we want to support Joe Bob. Treat it as a sample. Get your sample here. How about that?
First one's free.
I don't want to. I don't know how you're doing that voice.
I'm a drug dealer, a sketchy drug dealer. I'll buy it for a high price. Anyway, hang out with us this Friday and watch some Joe Bob, drink some beer. It'll be a good time. Also, we've got a crossover live show coming up on Saturday, April 13th here in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Justice Pub. The Shortbox podcast and Straight Chilling are going to be crossing streams and talking about Creepshow in both the movie and comic book form. live and in your faces, whether you like it or not. Yeah, show starts at 7. So it's a free event. So come hang out with us. The Justice Pub is a pretty sweet spot. Grab some beers, listen to us run our mouths.
Here's what you got to do, Bob.
So like any night.
You got to go back to our Creep Show episode that we did on Straight Chillin', and you got to make a soundboard of me and Randy that you can play throughout the show since we can't be there. So we're gonna just reference this.
It's gonna be a lot of Rob saying whatever the fuck he wants, and then one of our voices will be like, "Oh, that's pretty crazy." Whoa, didn't see that one coming.
Got that right, Rob.
I don't think I've ever said that.
You're gonna have to splice that shit together. I don't think that's gonna come out natural.
You got that right, Rob.
It's gonna be fucking Siri.
What a great point, Bob. Damn.
No.
You are looking
not fired, Bob.
Not fired.
Not fired.
So coming out with the Short Box crew and me, really, at the Justice Pub here in Jacksonville, Florida. Again, that is on
you and our crossover baby, Mr. Cesar.
Oh yeah, Cesar is he's gonna be playing for both teams, I guess. I'm gonna try and claim him as mine, but yeah, he swings both ways, if you know what I'm saying, and I think you do. Saturday, April 13th. That's pretty much it. Juice, do you have any Twitch news?
So Limbo is finished. Our game for the month of March is completed. It is now available all on YouTube. You've got all 3 streams with commentary from the live Twitch chat. So live experience. And then also I've already got the non-commentary playthrough, which is just the game straight up on there. So Limbo is completely up there for you to watch. It's pretty short. I think the non-commentary playthrough, if you want to just watch it like a movie or whatever, is a little less than an hour and a half. So it's pretty easy to get through, or even if you're a gamer, if you're stuck on a puzzle or something like that, you kind of want to see how to get through it. Got all that up there for you. I will have to skip this upcoming week. I will not be in town. So but it's actually March 31st, so it's not technically a new month yet. So we'll have to pick a new game for the new month of April. So if you got any suggestions, hit me up, let me know.
Play Snake.
And play Snake.
on your Nokia.
Terrifying.
I want to watch that playthrough on YouTube.
Oh, it's real long.
Oh shit.
I ran into my tail.
So now there's 3 games up there. Resident Evil 2 Remake, Limbo, and Little Nightmares you can watch for your viewing pleasure on YouTube. I've also added some new videos to, if you didn't know, we keep a horror music video playlist on our YouTube page as well. You can just click on our playlist page. And I added some new music videos on there as well. So if you're into horror music videos, you can check that out.
Dope.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's it for housekeeping now. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into what we've been watching this week, gentlemen. Randy, why don't you kick us off? What you been watching?
Okay, so it's been a lonesome week. The Becky is not with me currently. She went to visit her family for the week, so I have had simultaneously nothing and everything to do. I've been very busy with work and then having nothing to do afterwards. So I watched a lot of shit is the short version of that.
A lot of pornography, you mean?
I watched a lot of pornography, and then when I was bored with that, once everything was coming out dust, I decided I'd go on a little further and watch something non-pornographic. For example,
you didn't see that joke coming, did you, Randy?
Never. I don't remember you saying it 5 seconds before we started recording. That's for goddamn sure. So here's a long list.
Fresh material right there.
Here's a long list of non-pornographic films and shows that I have watched. I watched the entirety of True Detective season 3. It's great.
Yeah,
it's really great.
I gotta get on that. God, there's too much good shit to watch.
I don't want to obviously there's plenty of spoilers. It's a detective show. It's a mystery show, but the ending is pretty unique, and I really liked that. I don't know. I thought it was really strong. I don't want to get too deep into it. I watched Let's Scare Jessica to Death, which was medium for me. It's not really my jam, I don't think. but there were some parts that I liked. For those who don't know, it's sort of a seminal 70s. I don't know, like psychological thriller horror of some kind. I don't know. It's a little bit. It's a female-led thing. It's good. It's worth watching. It's not my favorite thing in the world, though. It's on Shudder. Get Shudder. Let's see. I watched The Inventor.
Sponsor us.
They should.
They do with our corporate account. Only normal amount of money to pay
We
for
just
it
have
every
to pay for it. Yeah.
They cut us a deal. They threw the word corporate in there. So I also watched The Inventor, which is an HBO documentary. Have you guys heard of that? About
No.
It's a pretty recent event, but this, some sort of Silicon Valley tech personality, sort of a Zuckerbergian type in the healthcare industry, was found to be, basically defrauding everybody. And
is that the blood test? You're talking about the blood test? Yeah, that's some fucked up shit.
Her name's
that chick is weird.
Yeah, she's just very intense, and I think that's how she got as far as she did, because people are so, like, she has giant eyes, and she never blinks.
When she changes her voice, did they bring that up in the documentary?
I don't recall that specifically, no. But
she's weird, man.
Basically, like, and the thing is, like, it doesn't even necessarily seem like it's malicious. It seems like she was defrauding herself just as much. So, like, it's an interesting documentary. It's worth a watch. I watched Behind the Curve, which is a flat Earth documentary.
Yes.
Oh.
Also on HBO, which it took me about a half hour before I was convinced that it was not actually made and produced exclusively by flat Earth people, but was instead like an actual, I thought it might be like, is this like a propaganda piece from the Flat Earth Society or something? How did it end up on HBO? What's happening? But it becomes sort of clear that they're just sort of like profiling it. They have some some scientists of repute on there, sort of like somewhat refuting them. But really, it's more like a dissection of how a community like that forms. It's pretty interesting, actually.
Here's the thing I'm curious about being international. I think that's mostly like an American institution. And I'm curious, like,
surprised by that at
internationally, like, if people are like, what the fuck are Americans doing? Like,
They
really,
are.
what? So we're anti-vaxxing or fucking flat earthing. It's like, what is going on over there? Is there something in our water that's turning the frogs gay? Because something's going on.
There's something in our water that's turning people dumb as rocks, as far as I can. Not the least of which is me. So, also watched The Last Shift, which I had been putting off for a long time. You guys familiar with that?
Yeah, that's a good pornography.
It wasn't. The Last Shift.
Oh, I'll never be back here again.
Oh,
Time
man.
to come on everything.
Oh my god. Yeah, The Last Shift, which was pretty good. It reminded me a lot of The Void. It just wasn't that Hellraiser-y style of horror. It was more of like a it's like if they brought like a heavily gory version of it's like if they brought in like the Sixth Sense scares and just blew a movie out around that, but set it in the same setting as like The Void, where it's a police station and there's one person there. And I don't know, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed As Above, So Below, which I had also been putting off for some time. Have you guys seen that?
I've been meaning to watch that.
That's been on my back burner for a long time. And man, like, setting aside some, I would say, questionable acting, I really loved the setting and sort of like I love what they did with that. They really kind of like, they went all out in that fucking movie. It's sort of like National Treasure and Paranormal Activity, and I don't know, like that last scene from Cabin in the Woods, all rolled up. The whole fucking movie. It's and The Descent.
Gonna be Justin in France, right?
And
there.
The Descent. There's
trip.
plenty of The Descent in there too. It's like really more tonally, it's The Descent, but it's got a lot more. I don't know, like I don't know how to put it. It's a lot more actiony than that, I would say, which is substantial. And then last but not least, I want to bring up my favorite thing I watched this week, which was the entirety of the show Pen 15 on Hulu, which I can't recommend higher. It is a for those who don't know, it's a comedy sort of in the vein of like it's sort of like the Wonder Years ish, where it's like a reflection on a specific time period, being an adolescent, and it's these two girls played by the adult creators of the show, and they're acting with actual middle schoolers as they pretend to be middle schoolers. So there's already like that's sort of like the hook, and that's what makes people be like, well, how are they gonna like? That's so weird. Like you got adult women sort of like fraternizing with teenagers, and we're supposed to like I don't know. It's fucking great though. It's really great. It's set in 2000, so it tickles a very specific nostalgia bone for me, and I think that it's like probably got some of the most relatable character work on television, as far as I can tell. It's fucking.
That's about when we were in middle school too. Yeah, we were in middle school.
Literally
Yeah.
our age. Like they're seventh graders in the year 2000, which I believe is exactly when I was.
And they have their own show. We have been wasting our lives.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Sure.
If I had known back then that fucking being able to play like Lifehouse over sappy high school or middle school scene as an adult was a career option, I might have listened to more butt rock. I don't know.
I had that Lifehouse record.
I'm so sorry.
Here I am.
But yeah, it's fucking great. And honestly, like I teared up at a few moments. It's a fucking good show. It really is like a mix between Wonder Years and Big Mouth, but it's less like it's still definitely got some R-rated aspects to it, but it's not quite as like blue as the humor in Big Mouth. But it's also got sort of like the general. It's like a live action show, so it feels more like the Wonder Years without a voiceover. I can't recommend it more. I'm gonna gush about it if you don't stop me.
Stop.
Please. Is that it?
That's it. That's all I.
That's all.
Like. That's all the
it?
non-pornographic.
That's it, Randy. We've got another hour and a half.
I listed 7
talking
things.
about your porn. Juice, what you been watching?
The biggest thing I've been watching over the past week is that Love, Death, Robots. Is that what it's called on Netflix?
Yeah.
Is it okay? I couldn't remember the order if that's actually the words that are used, but either way, it's actually pretty cool. It's I think 18 episodes, and it's essentially just a big anthology, but it's presented like a show as opposed to like a movie. There's no kind of wraparound or whatever. And the thing is they're all animated shorts. They're all around like I think maybe the shortest one is maybe around like 8 or 9 minutes, and then the longest one is maybe closer to 20. But they all fall around like the 10 to 15 minute range. They're all animated, different styles, different directors. None of the stories I don't think connect in any kind of way. But out of 18 episodes, I feel like I love the shit out of like most of them. Probably like 13 or 14 I like thought were amazing, and then there were a handful that were just like okay, like none of them like I just hated. There was one that I was like that I don't know, I wouldn't watch again, but none of them I felt like was a waste of time. And it's all just like technology based kind of things, but they're like some of them have really cool horror elements in them, all different kinds of cultures and stuff like that. There's just like a ton of different directors, and I really enjoyed that series as a whole. Several of the episodes I actually watched multiple times just because they were like kind of so like thought provoking or just really entertaining. So yeah, I would highly recommend that show, Love, Death, Robots, whatever the anthology on Netflix.
Do you remember the very first episode? Because that's the only one I've seen.
The first episode is a chick. She fights with this monster.
Yeah, that's like a kaiju Pokemon situation.
Fighting, yeah, kind of situation. Yeah.
Where does that rank on your like versus medium versus?
Probably medium to high. Like, I don't think it'd be top 5, but it's like it was solid. It was good. It was
okay,
good.
I watched that one and I was okay with it, but it didn't really inspire me to keep going. I was just curious if it was gonna get better or not.
There's some of my favorite ones. There's one about space, like a space travel kind of thing that has this huge like kind of horror element in it. That was one of my favorites. I think it's like episode maybe 12 or something. I can't remember. And then there's 2 of them that were very like Asian influenced. Maybe like one's in Japan, one's in China, I think, that I really enjoyed too. And I have to pick out a couple, but yeah. Overall, though, it was a
Are they-
really cool series. Great ideas. Some animation, like really fantastic. Some of the horror elements, like really fucking cool and intriguing. There's just a lot to like work through there, but it's so bite sized that it's like it's so easy to work through. It's like I found myself being like I have to watch like 3 more episodes, but they were only like 10 minutes, so it didn't matter.
It does it use sort of like the same animation style throughout?
No, it can
Okay.
like
That's
it
what I
can
thought.
vary wildly, yeah. But they all are animated.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, that's the main thing. I would definitely recommend checking that out. They're not all horror related. I would say maybe a third have like some kind of strong horror element to them. Maybe a third.
Cool. Yeah, I watched that first episode as well, Randy, and I kind of like you. I enjoyed it, but I just didn't continue. I probably will eventually. I just haven't yet. But...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I don't have any screed against it or anything. It's the same thing where it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
There's like a Dracula episode. There is a werewolf centric episode. There's like this space horror, like Event Horizon kind of episode. There's so there is, even in the horror realm, it like covers like kind of a wide range. So it casts like a wide net, but this stuff is really solid.
All right.
Cool. Anything else?
No, that's it.
All righty. I haven't been watching a ton of stuff this week, but I did go to Spooky Empire this past weekend in Orlando, and I wanted to talk about that for a hot minute real quick. Yeah, it was fun as shit. I had a really, really great time. I just went down for Saturday, just one day, with Brett and Mikey, those two dummies, and we stayed in a hotel there, and we got to meet like some people who listened to the show, and some I had met before, some I hadn't. But it was just like it seems like the more people that we're actually able to meet in person that wind up listening to the show, they all like across the board seem to be like the most like sweet, kind-hearted, like talented group of people.
Succulent.
It's very, very, very succulent. And it's just like each one that I meet, it just like it blows my mind even more. You know, so I just wanted to like gush for a minute and give a quick shout out to Matt. And he brought his little daughter with him. They were both wearing like matching Straight Chilling T-shirts. And it was adorable. It was totally adorable. It was great to meet you, Matt, and also Gary, who's a new Patreon, and he told me that he works I guess he like burns bodies for a living. He like cremates people. And he like listens to our show while he's doing this at work, and I was like, "That's like
fucking cool as
That's
shit.
instantly more cred
thing
than I've ever had about anything."
Yeah, it's like that. That's badass.
Yeah,
man.
we're basically music for burning bodies too. That's all I'm hearing.
Yeah, basically, man.
We're basically the fucking I don't know. We're the inspiration for a My Chemical Romance album over here.
I would not go that far. I would not go that far.
Here we go.
Also, Anthony was there hanging out. He was on the Suspiria podcast, but he's got his own YouTube channel, Something Ghoulish, that you should definitely check out if you haven't already. Good friend of the show. Also, Vicky, who has her own channel called Nightmare Maven that's on YouTube. You should definitely check her out if you haven't already. And Chris was there also from GargantuCast. So if you're into like kaiju movies or monster movies in general, check out GargantuCast and get your fix on some big ass monsters. But yeah, overall it was fucking great. It was a great time hanging out. We walked around, bought some movies, bought some delicious coffee from Coffee Shop of Horrors, which if you're unfamiliar with, based out of Claremont, Florida, their coffee is absolutely delicious and it's all horror themed. And they do not pay me to say this. Their shit is absolutely delicious, and you should go buy some.
They're just that succulent, folks.
And I hear they're looking for a Straight Chilling collab, our own flavor before we get on the cereal kick, Before we're going to take over breakfast. Is pretty much what we're
coming
saying.
for your breakfast plates, everyone. Everybody watch your hard-boiled eggs. We're coming for you.
Dude, we need like some Cooteros or something. We need Cooteros now.
Oh, fuck
I'm struggling at what kind of shape that would take, but
just wieners. Just all wieners, floating wieners.
Just wieners.
Also, when we were there, we stopped by the Vinegar Syndrome booth to buy some movies. They're like a Blu-ray label imprint, similar to like your Scream Factory, your Arrow, whatever.
We did not know what that was.
Vinegar Syndrome. Yeah, I figured they're a little less known than some of the other guys, but similar thing. They find these old movies and like restore them, and they make these really nice, fancy collector's edition Blu-rays and stuff. And we were talking to the people at the booth, and I bought a few movies. Mikey bought like 15 or something. He bought a lot of stuff. And we were just like hanging out at the bar afterwards, and he's like, you know what? I think I'm going to go back and try and strike a deal with them and buy the entire table, buy every single Blu-ray they had. With the
including multiples?
Yeah, well, with the intentions to resell them and make a profit. He's not buying them all for his own collection.
Oh, greed is good.
So he went and like they like haggled and like talked for, I don't know, a good while, man. Maybe like 20 minutes or something. They had like make several phone calls and like call the owner of the company and stuff, and like it was a whole thing. And
Mikey's just out there.
Mikey just takes over the table. Mikey's just like, get out of my table. Here is your cash, and he just marks all the prices up.
That shit, I don't know. That's like a classic Mikey thing. He's done this before. Like he buys and resells stuff quite a bit as like a side gig, side hustle kind of thing. But he's never like tried to buy wholesale from like a company like this before. I thought it was freaking kind of badass. I wanted him to say yes. I was just like sitting at the bar waiting to see him walk around the corner with this like huge dolly filled with boxes of movies or some shit. But they said no, but to like send the owner an email. So he did that, and he's waiting to hear back. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Freaking Mikey.
Wow.
Yeah.
The email just says, "Why are you doing this to me?"
Why?
Rob, did you get turned up?
Yeah. There was we were steady sipping pretty much all day, and at the end of the night there's a pool in the middle of the hotel which was connected to the convention center. It's like the place was massive. And there's a big pool, and they had like this dance party going on by the pool with like a DJ and stuff, and we went out there and hung out for a little bit, and it was a ton of fun. There's some drinking, there was some hanging out. It was a good time. It was a real good time.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, man.
We went to Spooky Empire once upon a time.
It's true.
The OG.
Did you take a piss near anybody cool, Rob? No.
No, I did.
How many 11s did you see, Rob? 11?
0 11s. I did see Kane Hodder again though, and we made eye contact and did the whole like, sup.
What's up, straight chilling crew?
Didn't take a piss next to him.
Give him a t-shirt, man. That guy's got every t-shirt.
He does the finger guns at you and goes, "You're fired, Bob."
I would shit in my pants if that happened. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. It was a great time, and I look forward to going again in October. So let's go ahead and get into the main event. Finally talk about some us. Let's get fucking elevated in this bitch and start off with the back of the box. What's on the back of the box? Talking about Us, written, directed, and produced by Jordan Peele. Brand spanking new movie. Came out last week. The plot synopsis is as follows. A family's serenity turns to chaos when a group of doppelgangers begins to terrorize them. So, that's neat.
Small box.
Neat.
It's a real small box.
Yeah. So this movie, obviously none of us had seen it before because it's brand new. I know we were looking forward to it because we all liked Get Out a good bit. Real quick, spoiler free, would you recommend people go to the theater to check this bad boy out, or just like wait for the VOD situation on hand? Randy, what are you thinking?
I'm giving it a hard yes.
Theatre? Yeah.
Go to the theater, man. Go watch it.
Juice?
Worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. If nothing else, it's a good movie to watch. But nothing else, I gotta respect fucking Peele, man. He's like carrying the torch. I think like already they were trying to say like the critics are trying to say like this thriller or whatever. He's like, this is a
Yeah.
horror movie. This
Yeah.
is a
He
horror movie.
is not letting them slide on
No,
that shit
so
at all, and I
if
love
nothing
that.
else, so this blows the box office's ass out, and like, and people like have to fucking respect that shit. I'm still salty about like Hereditary, like not getting nods, like you know, like that movie was so fucking good last year. Like people need to be like start stepping up, bit. Come on. But yeah, so I respect that. So yes, go watch this movie. Give them your money.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. That's 3 hard. Go to the theater and watch this shit for sure. Show some love. Jordan Peele kicking some ass. So I'm gonna drop the spoiler warning, and we can get into it. And this is definitely one that like, don't finish this episode until you've seen the movie. it's you don't want it spoiled. So here we go. All right.
You know, I'm pretty proud. I'm pretty happy. I went in this movie as anybody who's been listening for a while, and we've been talking about this movie as it's been, you know, inching towards us. I managed to avoid watching any trailers for this, which is basically a miracle because it was everywhere.
Wow.
Good.
And I actually had no idea there were doppelgangers in this movie until it started happening.
Wow.
And I found out later. I was like, I wonder how much of the trailer spoiled that, because it seemed like everybody was saying it spoils the whole movie, but there's a lot to it. They didn't spoil the whole movie, but they spoiled that shit. And I was like, the only thing I had was a visual of scissors and a visual of like 4 people in red jumpsuits, and I was like, okay, so home invaders maybe, and that's as close as I got. I'm very happy that I did that.
Yeah.
You must have missed out on some standees and posters and stuff too, because I know there's like at least
I was
one
avoiding
standee. Okay, I was gonna say because that had like all the doppelgangers on it. That was like widely advertised. Wow, that's crazy that you missed all
The
that.
closest I came was the one where Lupita, is that her name?
Yeah.
I'm getting that wrong, I'm sure. Where she's moving her face and concealing another face. That's as close as I came. That can mean anything in terms of a movie poster.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
yeah,
your fear, whatever.
I did a similar thing. Even like I just saw the movie 24 hours ago because it just dropped in Korea. But I saw the teaser trailer and have avoided literally everything else. Even like I didn't even want to see what anybody else thinks about this movie until we talked about it, because like I don't know. I've been thinking about it and I want to have this discussion because I want it raw. I want to go in raw dogging.
Unfiltered, like your own thoughts.
Yeah.
Damn, in your own words.
This movie is like Jordan Peele's been saying like hardcore, yeah, it's a horror movie. But when I heard him talking about it like long before it came out, and he said that he wanted to create like a through and through like monster mythology, like create a monster movie. And I thought it was kind of neat to come to find out that he went like the doppelganger route, because that's something that you don't really see a lot of anymore. But it feels very classic, like Twilight Zone ish, you know, which makes perfect sense because like he's hosting the new Twilight Zone or whatever that's coming out this week, and it just seems like he's very much influenced by that kind of thing. And of course, this is like, you know, littered with social commentary, much like Get Out is, and that's why we've been making these whole like elevated horror jokes, because like people just refuse to say this is a fucking horror movie. It is. It just
everybody wants to qualify this shit, and I love that Peele does not.
Just because it's making a point doesn't mean it can't be horror. And Jordan Peele's not the first person to do this. He's just like the most recent person. I don't know. But yeah, this movie is like it's about a family of 4, and they go on vacation to their little beach house, and the wife had been there before when she was younger and had a very traumatic experience where she went into this house of mirrors and saw a little girl that looked identical to her, and it scared her and traumatized her. So going back to the same beach, you know, kind of put her on edge. And while they were there, she started feeling more and more uncomfortable, and like is warning her husband that like there is this girl that looked identical to her, and she feels like she's getting closer and closer. And then bam, there's a doppelganger crew, the exact same family, but they're all like wearing red jumpsuits and they have scissors and they're trying to murder some folk. So that's sort of like the setup of the movie. And the very beginning of the movie, like the first thing you see, I forget exactly what it says, but it's like there are thousands and thousands of unused tunnels underneath America. Nobody knows like what's
Yeah,
going on there.
mines. And,
Yeah, subways that have
old
been abandoned,
subways and yeah.
which is kind of neat. And then you see this old tube TV, and the beginning portion where you see the mom as a little girl. It takes place in 1986, and they zoom into this like tube television, and it's a commercial for the Hands Across America thing, which really happened in 1986. And they just play the whole commercial, and then either side of the tube TV, you've got like VHS tapes, and there's Chud and Goonies.
Dude,
and
I was
a couple other.
Chud. Seeing that Chud VHS was my first
Yeah.
my
Dude,
first
it popped
gasm
out
of the
in me,
movie. I was like,
too.
yep, that's
I
my.
was like,
Right.
those boys are gonna love that Chud right there.
6
Especially-
to midnight.
Especially right after like it comes right on the heels of them talking about the abandoned mines and all that shit. I was like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
shit, there's gonna be cannibals underground, baby. That's what's going.
Chud.
I didn't know there were double.
Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground
Yeah.
dwellers.
Another conspiracy movie, like government conspiracy movie.
Yeah. Very true. So I knew Tim Heidecker was in this movie, which is
That's another.
kind of awesome. Like, so he's from Tim and Eric or whatever. He's a comedian. I don't know that I've ever seen him in a serious role before. But
Wait,
in this
who was
movie,
he?
He's the white dad.
Oh, okay.
So they meet up with a family of 4. That's a mom, a dad, and then 2 twin daughters. And they're like hanging out on this beach vacation or whatever. And the dad's played by Tim Heidecker, and he's kind of goofy. He doesn't play it like totally straight. But when the doppelganger version of him shows up, that's also played by Tim Heidecker, is so fucking creepy. He kills it. He fucking kills it. When he goes down to like lend a hand and then pulls it up and like slicks his hair back with that creepy little smile on his face, man.
I laughed my ass off at that moment.
Fucking great.
That's one thing we got to say right out of the gates for me. Like, this is a horror movie for sure, but Peele doesn't shy away from a good joke every now and again. Like this is a very funny movie at certain moments. Like, there are some things. Winston, I forget his last name. The dad.
I love that guy.
He was cracking my ass up.
He was my favorite character. M'Baku, he's fucking M'Baku in Black Panther. That dude was killing it. I loved one of the things I wanted to point out too. This movie really hit home for me. Like, it like really struck a chord with me. And I think it's because he did say, actually, every actor in this did like a really, really fantastic job. But this like family like really struck a chord with me of the whole like African Americans being like represented in media. Like, it was so nice to have this family as African Americans. I don't like, just to me, I was just like, this feels good. Like, it was good to see like the dad and like the mom, the interactions with the kids, and him being like a goofy dad. Like, I don't know. This is the first time I like really felt that, where I was like, when do you see this in a movie that's not specifically seem like it's like aimed, like it's not like Medea Goes to Christmas or whatever, or like, I don't know, or like, it's just like,
well, this like, it's not a movie that's specifically geared towards African Americans. Even Get Out was pretty, like, it was very specific in its aims of addressing African American,
and just like the family life and how I don't know. I just liked it. Like when the like they were like, had like the hip hop track, the old school like hip hop track on like in the car, and like just infusing like fuck the police and then like the NWA. I don't know, like, and just the good. I think the dad sold, or the like M'Baku sold the dad role so much. It was just like so charming to me, and it just like felt great. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it.
I mean, yeah, he's hilarious. I wouldn't even like. It says something. It says a lot actually to say that he wasn't even the best actor in this movie, but he wasn't even in my top 3. I wouldn't say, which no slight to him at all, because there's just so many goddamn heavy hitters in this fucking movie. Their performances are killer. Lupita's performance is fucking Oscar worthy in my opinion. Like, she's playing two roles, and she's not phoning in a second of it, not a second.
Yeah.
And the kids in this movie are also fucking killing it. They're all like playing vulnerable. They're playing cocky. They're playing everything. I'm just so blown away by the whole thing. And then Heidecker blew me away. Elizabeth Moss is always great.
Their family aspect like felt organic. Like it felt, even the things that are like typical, like, oh, the dad does a joke and he like razzes the girl and like the boy like doesn't, I don't know, it just like, it didn't feel pinned. It felt real. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I liked it.
Yeah. They kill it. Like pretty much all the main actors in this, and a lot of the supporting actors actually, they're all playing two roles, and like both of them, both sides are like really well written and like well thought out. And Lupita, especially when she's playing like the red version of herself, the doppelganger version, that raspy voice that she has. She's the only one that can speak, by the way, on the doppelganger side. That raspy voice that she puts on is like fucking terrifying, man. As soon as she starts talking, holy shit. And I watched Jordan Peele talking about making this movie just a little bit. It was like a short little interview, and he's talking about how she was very method. And when she was in that character, she would stay in it for the day. And he made this joke where he walked into her trailer just to like see how she was doing. And he did the voice, and he was like, you know, we need more Chex Mix at craft services. Like, that shit is fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah, she was like, and that was like one of the things I've seen tossed around quite a bit, is that is based off a real condition that people have, and I wish I could remember the name of it. But like the on the script, it didn't actually say anything besides she hasn't used her voice in a long time, and she extrapolated into this fucking amazing and incredibly effective choice. I mean, what else do you need to say? Like that to me is like that's proof that these people are putting in everything they have. Like and it's also proof that Peele knows a good thing when he sees it. Like he's able to recognize those good ideas. He's not necessarily sharing the reins, but he's allowing all these decisions. That's a big decision to take front and center stage. Decision that he didn't make. He just allowed it, and he like let it go forward, and he embraced it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm going to be gushing a lot here.
well, and I wanted to stop for a second. I did want to stop because I specifically said I wanted to come out of the theater, and I didn't jot all of my thoughts down right after, and I like fucking hate myself now. But I want to, like, if we can give like a synopsis, because I actually had some problems with this movie, and I didn't want to just cream all over it. Sure. Because like the acting was great, but I did have some problems, and I wanted to try to work through them because, like I said, I haven't seen anybody else's opinion. I haven't seen any like analysis into it, and I want to try to work through some things that when I was sitting in the theater, I'm going to try to remember everything. I did jot some things down that I was like, had problems with. Like, I feel like there's some holes in this, and there's some choices there. I don't know. So let's get into it. Can we? So we have the family, and they go to the beach. So we had the girl, and she got lost, and she grows up. She's got 2 kids. She's got the family. And one night, at their summer home in Santa Cruz or whatever, right? Santa Cruz.
Yeah, near there. Yeah. That's the beaches. The same family shows up, so just opposite, and they're like dark versions essentially. So like the little boy like has this thing where he like plays with fire, and it's like real dark, and then the girl she's just kind of like creepy or whatever. She's like I don't know, she's kind of psychotic, yeah. And then the dad, he's just kind of like more like primal, I guess. He's got this kind of like primal thing to him. And then the mom, obviously, she's the one kind of orchestrating everything, and the whole explanation is like, we have been tethered to you. So every choice that you make, every like good thing that happens to you is like a dark version for us, essentially. Mm-hmm. It's like she does this whole like monologue where she's like, you get like toys for Christmas and
Ours are like sharp and jagged and cold, and like you get delicious meals, and ours are like not cooked and raw. Like, so she goes in this like whole spiel about her opposites.
She doesn't even say she like cares about whatever the equivalent of the husband character is. She's like, we were brought together because you brought yourselves together.
Yeah. You chose your mate out of love, and like it was forced upon me because of your choice, essentially. So everything that like the regular everything that the regular one does, the regular woman and man and kids and everything does, essentially like a dark version happens to the other people, and their whole thing is the untethering. We're gonna untether ourselves from you, and it's kind of implied, I guess, that they're going to kill them, but then they also like want to torture them, or like at first that's a little obscure. And then the white family gets killed by their doppelganger. So you find out, because at first you think maybe it's just this family, because you see in the beginning this little girl, she has a doppelganger because she gets lost in a house of mirrors. But it turns out, okay, you're like, okay, that was a surprise to me. Oh, there's more. Okay, like this is a bigger thing. And then it turns out that these things are like clones, right? Or like they're created.
That's what's implied, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, they're somehow created, maybe clones or something else.
It's a government experience.
Yeah.
By the government. And they compare it to
people.
Right. Yeah, and like one of the big things is like in the opening that like implied like the clones too is like the rabbits. They're like there's these cages of like rabbits that are like, I assume, like the animal test subjects or whatever for this experiment. But essentially, yeah, the government created a bunch of clones to control people. And what happens is like the movements that people do is what happens to these clones. Like, so they mimic their movements, but the clones are like fucked up. They can't speak. And she does this whole thing where like they couldn't clone the soul. So right. Like they're just like dark versions of themselves.
They have to share a soul, but they're not in control because they're not the originals, is what.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the whole thing is like they have to kill their doppelgangers. Or their doppelgangers are trying to kill them, and they're killing everybody. So everybody's doppelgangers coming after them and killing them, and this family's just trying to survive. So that's the premise. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I had some problems. There's some holes in this. Did anybody else have any like major problems?
I had some nitpicks, like logistical nitpicks.
Good. Because there's a lot of great things about this movie, but I thought there's a lot of problems.
Yeah, it's not flawless.
No. Let me see. At one point, this was just really confusing to me. This is really, really nitpicky, so I promise I have much bigger problems. But at one point, she was like, "Who are you?" And she was like, "We are Americans." And I was like, "What? Did anybody else get confused by that?"
Well, in the moment, yeah, because there's not really like a clear.
You're waiting for the point, but after seeing the whole movie, I really liked that part.
Yeah, me too.
Why? Like, what? I didn't understand the implication.
Yeah, the way I kind of took it, like this is talking specifically about like the grander point of this whole movie and less about this very specific scene, I guess. But it's like, to me, what I took away from this movie, it actually being about is like the haves and the have-nots. Like basically, we're all the same. We're all Americans. The only difference is like these doppelgangers are victims of circumstance that they had no control over. And the only difference between like the original and the doppelganger is the circumstances themselves. And it even goes so far to show that they're swapped, to jump to that point in the movie. They are swapped, and then the doppelganger is the one that's actually living in the real world, and she has like a totally perfect, happy, normal life, and like the only difference is the circumstance. So like we are Americans. There is no us. There is no them. We're all the same.
So in the moment I just thought, well, like I kind of understood that, but I was like, well, that seems like heavy-handed. Why would the character say that?
Because she's obsessed. She orchestrated this whole thing this whole event that happens in the movie to mimic Hands Across America. So being Americans is part and parcel to that. They're making like that. That's part of what's happening here is that because of her, she's the original, whatever the character's name is. God damn it.
Adelaide.
Yeah. She's the original Adelaide. She was forced down underground and put in a position where she's like in a terrible position, but she had this Hands Across America t-shirt. She remembered seeing those commercials and all the hope it inspired for her. And the whole point of this movie is that because she has knowledge that the others don't, such as how to speak and things like that, she is able to concoct this plan that mimics what she considers to be the largest like scale, demonstration of hope for underserved people that there are. And there's no one more underserved than the tethered in this movie. There's no one in more dire circumstances. So them being Americans to me is, in terms of why she specifically would say that, is because she recognizes that she's the same as them. In fact, she knows she's exactly the same as the people up top. And she's like, we're Americans too. We're Americans too, just like those people. And we're going to show you how we're Americans. We're going to become Hands Across America.
In the moment, it seemed like very heavy-handed, and I was like,
I didn't take it as heavy-handed, but it definitely was a question mark. But to me, it was like it was supposed to be eerie, and that's how I took it. Just be like, what is
intriguing?
What is she getting at? Because we still don't know what's happening at that point. We hadn't been introduced to Heidecker's twin yet,
I did have kind of a problem. So when the movie starts at the very beginning, the little girl runs into her double. I was like, oh, they're gonna switch. And then throughout the rest of the movie, I was just like, oh, I guess they didn't switch. And then the very end turns out they did. And I was like, okay, well, in context of everything that we just seen, I don't follow. I feel like the mythology, the monster mythology, has some holes in it. It feels a little like fast and loose here. Because,
I
the
agree.
original is supposed to do whatever, and then the tethered is supposed to mimic the action. So in Adelaide's situation, where they're reversed, the real Adelaide shouldn't really be able to do whatever she wants, right? She's supposed to mimic the real Adelaide that's actually underneath the ground at that point. So it doesn't really follow.
I took that. Now here's kind of the difference. I took that as maybe Adelaide was the exception. Okay. Because she even says, or there's the implication before we know that they're switched, where she was like, I was special, I was different, or whatever. And I took that to mean that her doppelganger was kind of special too. She's the one, because the doppelganger can, none of the other doppelgangers can speak, but both of these Adelaides can speak. So there's something different about both of them.
I think we need to make a differentiation here. So probably, and just correct me if I'm wrong. I think
you want to say OG,
what?
OG Adelaide, to say which one's
fine.
Which.
Oh, okay. Anyway, but I think there's two levels of this movie, right? Pretty much any movie, whether it knows it or not, has a subtext and an undercurrent going on. What this movie is about is not the mythology. What this movie is about is class struggle and the demons within and all this shit. Yeah. And on that level, you can justify literally every choice. I think that's what Peele is working towards, in my opinion. Not so much and not to say that he wasn't, but less priority was put into a bulletproof system of how these things work, which to me is not a problem.
It does, because it starts to fall away in the same kind of way that we started to pick away at A Quiet Place, where this has some serious holes. If you're trying to base it off of this, it's got because it works within the context of the world that he's telling to you. So we don't know how it works, but he specifically gives you these details that once you start to really think about it, you're like, well, that doesn't actually make any goddamn sense.
Look, there's a few things that are like that in this movie for sure. I think the difference is that this movie has a stronger sense of, to me, it what it's about is more strongly represented and more literary in how it's displayed. So when you're looking at classic literature and shit like that, you don't necessarily Dracula, nobody explains why Dracula can't walk in the sunlight. Nobody, that's not if what that movie is about is basically fear of certain ethnicities. and he's the monster version of certain ethnicities. That's what it like kind of originally was.
Yeah,
then,
but Peele
like, that doesn't
tries
have
to
anything to
explain
do
it
with that.
though. That's the thing. In fact, one of the beefs that I had with this movie is there's a ton of monologue where he has to explain himself, where he's like, this is actually how shit works. In fact, and like some of them were great. Like I really enjoyed the monologue where they first break into the house and like she does the whole like, you chose your husband, I was forced with my husband, like you chose these things, I really enjoyed that monologue. But like if it weren't for that woman telling us everything, we would know nothing. Like she has to tell us everything about everything. Like this whole movie like works is even like as like a creature movie. She has to say, we are a government experiment, we have no souls, we cannot do these things. Like
But they
she
didn't
has
have
to
do
tell
that.
us.
They didn't
What do you
have to
mean?
do that. Like why is that essential? Why is it essential that we know it's a government experiment specifically? And I'll tell you why. It's not because we need a more bulletproof mythos. It's because what it's representative of requires that. It's representative of an underserved class. It's not. That's why it's important to say the government was involved and they caused this. You know, it's not because we need to be explained to us, well, where did doppelgangers come from? If that wasn't a part of what he was trying to say, like thematically, then there's no point in him saying it.
Yeah, but
I think
then
he's chasing a
but there's
specific.
like no subtlety to it. There's no finesse. There's no like that's what I
Okay,
was
I mean
saying when she was like,
that's a
we
good
are
point.
Americans or it's a government experiment. It's like, okay, well, like now you're just kind of like shoving it down my throat.
Well, you have a problem with telling instead of showing. But I would
Yeah.
and
I
that's a
typically
fair
do.
nitpick. That's a fair
Yeah.
nitpick. To me, it didn't bother me because what she's saying and what it means for the point of the movie are not the same thing, you know, necessarily. Like there's more to it than what she's saying, and figuring out what those extra nuggets are, which are what the movie is about, the core of it. Getting to that point, it both requires a little hand holding and it doesn't. Like if they didn't have that, it would be people would be like more pissed because they don't have a bulletproof like monster system to rely on. They don't have their scientific place cards in front of them, plaque or like a method for how this works. But the point would still be there. And I think that I don't know. There are movies where I'm not as forgiving of that. That's for sure. A Quiet Place is one of them. Because sometimes it sticks in my craw. That's really like just personal thing. I can't really control it.
Run the old Randy Craw.
But it's important to say that like here are some nitpicks I found. Some things that like if I'm watching this as a B movie instead of a movie with a point, you know what I mean? If I'm watching this as, okay, somebody wanted to slap together a horror movie, here it is, a scary movie. Where do they get red jumpsuits? Where do they get gold scissors on the scale that they need them to perform this?
Yeah.
How do they orchestrate this
the
without
same,
communicating? With only one person able to communicate in one underground bunker, supposedly of thousands. Where does she get handcuffs to tie up her doppelganger? Why don't any of them leave the tunnels to begin with? Why does it take her Lupita or Adelaide, you know, and her double sort of like having
why are they
faded
all just abandoned? Like, why did the government not try and kill
Yeah.
any of them and just be like,
They're all
fuck
just
it, we're
chilling down there.
Yeah, they're soulless monsters, but they're just been abandoned. Like that works for the theme, even if it doesn't make logical sense. Like logic, this is a movie to me where logic can take a very, very pointed backseat.
I give it a pass, but not entirely, because it is both of those things. Like you said, it's very much a movie that's making a point, and it's very much a B horror flick.
I'm not saying
those
those critiques aren't wrong. I'm just saying like there's the bulletproof version of this movie is the movie that I think Jordan Peele was trying to make, which is
precedent
about something. Like what it's about.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Is versus
but you have to be, but at the same point, he wants to. Yeah, but at the same point, he wants to carry the flag and say, like, this is a horror movie. It's like, okay, like, that's fine. But, okay, so then this isn't a, like, you can't necessarily have your cake and eat it, too, when you're thinking. So, like, when you're creating, like, a horror movie and you're creating monsters and you yourself are, like, setting up these precedents, like, I understand you also want to make a social commentary point, but, like, you have to decide, like, are you making a horror movie or are you making a social commentary? And like, so it like, well, no, but I mean, it's just saying like it. Like, I'm gonna pick it apart. Like, I'm not just gonna give it a pass because it has something to say. It's like, well, his main goal was to make the point. It's like, okay, well, that's fair, but like, then maybe make a movie that's more about social commentary instead of be like, it's a horror movie.
That's what horror
it's like,
is.
Well,
horror
when you're
is
building
commentary.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying it's not impervious. Like, I'm not gonna give it the pass. Yeah, I'm not gonna give it the pass because it's trying to say something. But you're to saying me, it's like, a little, because like, I mean, you could say like Hereditary is trying to say something like about the family, but like they don't have to like shove it down your throat. Like, I feel like his monologues, and like, for example, I feel like Get Out was a lot more effective in being subtle, in being like,
the story overall was tighter.
It was tight, yeah, exactly, tighter. Like, there was a lot less holes.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
It was smaller scale. Like, the mythos was probably held up a little bit better there.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know, man. I think, like, to say that, like, you know, horror movies have to choose between having a point or being scary, I think that misses the point of us making fun of elevated.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying.
You know,
they don't have to make a point.
I think it is both, and you can be critical of one and still be a good movie. To me, it's like
the best ones are both.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which pull it off equally, or like
I think if there are, I think the flaws in this movie that we're discussing are the ones that I would point to as well as being even remotely flawed. Yeah. Just from a logical standpoint, I think that's perfectly reasonable critique to make. But like I say, I give a lot of credence to the idea that there was this movie tried to go for both, but I'm glad that they landed the one that they landed. You know what I mean? I would rather
I agree. Yeah.
You know, and it didn't fail at being scary. You know, it didn't fail at presenting reasonable and logical steps for our characters. What it fails to do is like patch up every hole or whatever. But to me, like there's plenty of horror movies I've seen that don't make logical sense, like, and I love them. Like,
it's not that it doesn't make logical sense, because you could say like, okay, Get Out, for example, but since it's his movie and he wrote and directed both of them, Get Out, you could say like, okay, it doesn't make sense logically to transfer somebody's consciousness to another person's body. That's just because you want to do. I think what the problem is this relies, and he tells you it relies. That's the thing, on so much of like, this doppelganger has to do what you do. So like Bob's point is like, right. It's like one of my whole things is like, their whole thing is like, we're going to be untethered from you. Like, that's their whole mission statement. It's like, okay, how the fuck did these doppelgangers get out of the basement then? If they have to do everything that you're going to do, and the whole goal is to become untethered, then how the fuck are they on the surface anyways? How do they have any free will whatsoever?
I mean, here's the thing. I have rebuttals to that, and I have like points I could make about that, but to me it doesn't really fucking matter. Like,
to me it does.
I don't know. To me, these feel like nitpicks, and that's what I labeled them. Like, that you're not wrong to suggest that maybe, like, to not understand what the connection is there, or like to have questions about how it operates. But for me, I feel like you're getting trapped in the mud. I feel like it's getting trapped in the mud and like not ignoring like what it's about. Like, I think that's just more important, and it makes me.
I think they're both. You have to evaluate both, because the movie is both things. And I will say, like, when I first got out of the movie, all of these problems were stuck in my head. But like, the more time I had to reflect on it and try and cultivate like what Jordan Peele was trying to say, like what the point of the movie was, I enjoyed it. I appreciated it more and more the more I had time to reflect on it. And like, those problems that I had, those holes that I noticed, mattered less and less, but they are still there. But it's overall.
And the thing is, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, overall, I certainly enjoyed the movie, and
I think we all
of the
did.
points he
so
made.
I mean,
yeah, I just didn't want to it's already getting a lot of praise, and I wanted to offer another point of view, because another thing, like, too, it really took a back seat, and it's kind of bothering me. Another thing that bothered me too is like, okay, You have these doppelgangers, and they've created these clones, and that's fine. They've created these clones, and they have problems. That makes some sense, okay? But the kids don't really make any sense because she specifically says, like, okay, you conceived these kids, and I conceived my kids, and you had a C-section, and I had to perform the C-section myself. But, like, why do the kids look exactly the same? Like, that doesn't make any kind of like biological sense because like, okay, these kids were conceived.
See, and
but hang on, no. The kids were conceived, and one of them was conceived with a regular woman, so she's not even a doppelganger, and so they look the same, and then they're flawed too. That was the problem too. Is like, okay, the whole big twist is like, oh, one of them's not a doppelganger, she's the OG. Okay, well, like, shouldn't she have like the regular kids then?
See,
like,
no, here's the this is what I'm saying.
Circumstances. That's
this is what I'm saying, though.
Is the children are monsters because of the circumstances that they're raised
but
in. The doppelganger
know,
can speak because she was in better circumstances.
But at that point, though, they have better circumstances because at that point they're abandoned, and this lady is free to go. Yeah. Like, do you see what I'm saying?
It's not airtight, man. It's not airtight.
No, it's actually pretty loose.
I don't consider it a flaw though, because what you're describing, everything you just said, is perfectly explainable by what he was trying to say with that. Like, these people, they're not just representative of class. In my opinion, they're also representative of, what, like he said, this is a horror movie where he wanted to make a horror movie where the villain is us. The villain is Americans. It's what we don't want to acknowledge about ourselves and the evil things that, we are associated with when we can take ourselves out of our, summer picnics and shit. I think to that end, it makes perfect sense. Everybody has these, terrible things in them. Like, everybody has the capacity for terrible things. Everybody has had bad experiences that they don't want to acknowledge. Everybody has bad stuff. You know what I mean? And that includes kids, and it's a lot of times has a lot to do with your parents. So to have those bad things be somewhat hereditary and have them be perfect mirror images of each other, that's thematically important to make that point happen, even if it doesn't make logical sense to that sperm would fertilize that egg. I think that's just, at that point, getting pedantic about the process and ignoring the fact that it's illustrative of a bigger point that is very successful, in my opinion. Do you see
I guess
I mean?
I feels like it would have been easier to explain away. Like, okay, you know what? This has been a government experiment like the whole time, and maybe just this night they slayed their masters and they're breaking free. Like, that would make more sense. Like, that would be more airtight. But just
that
tonight.
Ignores the abandonment. That ignores the abandonment of a government that doesn't want to acknowledge the class of of poverty-stricken people,
but it would still be government abuse. It would say like the government but it ignores a huge facet of that.
Then the point becomes like, the government is putting their thumb on you, and they control you, and they tell you what to do, and these people are actively oppressed. But there's something to be said about inactive oppression.
Yeah,
that's what,
when there's a working escalator that legit goes to the top, it's hard to ignore.
That was probably the biggest nitpick I had in terms of getting stuck on me, because I was like,
and they
okay, but why didn't she go up
there
at any time? Yeah, I get it, that, but
and food and
rabbits. Lots.
They ate the rabbits. They ate the rabbits. They explicitly say that, actually.
But and there's just like so many of them, and like the whole thing too of like, I liked the scene where they go back and they show the little girl and her dad, like when they get swapped, because that shit's fucking creepy. Like when they're showing like the people on the rides, but they're just stuck in this room and they're not really moving.
It's
and
very
then
much
the girl,
the sunken place in a way.
Yeah, it is. And the girl gets her t-shirt, and like her version of her dad is like really fucking like
tweaking
fucked
out,
up, like it's scaring me. Like, I like that, but like, okay, like they have a black T-shirt down there. Like, I don't know, there were just details. I was like, that's kind of dumb, or that doesn't make a lick of sense.
If she didn't, then it wouldn't be a mirror image, and then the point becomes obfuscated by the need to explain things logically. That's the problem I see with some of these things. And you're not wrong, but I think that if anything that deters us from seeing what the movie's about is expendable and is explained. Can be explained another way or can be forgiven at least.
Yeah. You want the point? The point takes precedent for sure.
It does. I understand, but
it does have problems.
It's got holes. It's got some holes.
I just don't see them as problems. Is my thing, I guess. Like not
little
really.
girl winning that Thriller T-shirt in 1986. Pretty dope.
Also, whole, she did great too. By the way.
Yeah.
Her praises yet. I want to make sure and do that because she just to start the movie with. I was like, that girl went from like completely vulnerable child to when her doppelganger, I guess, being terrifying as motherfucking shit. That fucking grin she gets on her face. Oof, it's good stuff.
Yeah, that is actually really scary.
Another problem that I had, which Randy, you mentioned this, but like the scissors being the main like murder weapon. I like upon watching it, I was like, why doesn't make any sense? Like, why were there just like hundreds or thousands of pairs of like these giant golden scissors just laying down there, and like why are they killing people with scissors? I don't get it. And I saw Jordan Peele was explaining away that the reason they were using the scissors is because it's a symbol. It's like two identical halves that are bound together, make scissors. And I was like, that's cool. Even though it doesn't necessarily make sense in context of the story, it's a symbol, and which I forgive it for that. It's pretty neat.
That's Kubrickian, like that. Kubrick, like people lose their fucking minds trying to decipher the symbology of fucking 2001: A Space Odyssey or The Shining, which this movie is deeply engrossed in, and you can't explain. Like people have tried and gone insane trying to explain what happens in The Shining, and you know what? It doesn't fucking matter because it's scary, and it makes. And I don't know if I would call it a point, but what it's about is a man trying to conceal his shit and then having it bubble up because he can't fucking control it.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not like confused by this movie though. Like, like The Shining would like do things like, why is that dude giving that dude like a blowjob? Yeah, and I know like that's from the book and stuff like that. And it's like
this movie actually does more of the logical think through of how this works than Kubrick ever did. It does a lot more.
And I think that's the problem is like Peele through his monologues, so much of this movie is dedicated to monologues. So I almost would be more forgiving if it were more ambiguous, because then I would be like, well, there's just so much I don't know. But the problem is he wants to tell me about it. Like he goes to the effort to tell me about it. And so when he tells me, it's a lot easier for me to be like, well, Peele, that doesn't make a lick of sense. Like it feels like sloppy writing, or it feels like your point is taking the precedent and you're just trying to find ways to make your point. So just, if that's the case, then don't tell me. Like,
well, there needs to be some sort of grounding in these. In my opinion, I don't think this movie is in any danger of losing its entire grounding because of these problems. The Shining, you can make the argument that it does. The fucking 2001: A Space Odyssey, there's so much just straightforward symbol with no explanation in that movie that like you can get lost in it forever. I think he's towing the line here. I don't think he really wanted to do he wanted him. I'm completely projecting what I think, obviously, but I think he wanted to make something that appeals to both sides of that. And I can see your point that like just it's sort of whet your appetite for the nuts and bolts of how they work without necessarily satisfying all of your questions. I get that. That's fine. To me, it just sort of like falls away.
And here's the thing. It led to some great scenes. I'm not going to say that it didn't. Like, and it still doesn't make some sense as to why like the one doppelganger Adelaide like can speak and she can't. I kind of like forgive that. I assume like she was like cloned different, or like it was just like an evolution type thing, or just an anomaly.
Circumstances.
Yeah,
yeah.
But it led to some like fantastic scenes, like the scene where the white mom is like putting on the makeup and like does the silent scream. She killed that scene. Also the scene like I had mentioned before where it goes back and it shows like the whole like carnival and like people on the rides. Like that shit was some great visuals, like some great horror monster visuals where you're like, oh my god, like this is fucked up, where you can see how they are tethered to these other people. Like that was very effective visually. Oh my god.
Yeah, I thought that was fucking great. And I like it was such a nice culmination because I remember watching that first scene and being like watching her sort of like slowly walk with her parents, and like the way it was shot, I was like there's something going on here, but I don't know what it is. Like there's obviously some menace happening here because it's quiet and because just the way they're like the cinematography here is leading me to think that we're supposed to feel small and vulnerable, which makes sense for a kid, but it was like kind of beyond that. And I think like when I saw that they were making that parallel directly, I was like, okay, so this is like a Shyamalan tactic where you show something, but you just have this whole other side to it that you're not privy to. And like somebody else compared this to a Shyamalan movie, not in a negative way, and I think that's true. Like it's got a little bit like, even though like Rob said, I also kind of thought, okay, well maybe she swapped right at the beginning, but I didn't have a lot of like mind power to dedicate to that theory. I was too focused on all the other things that were happening, which I think is like the perfect way to, it's misdirection. It's like literally if you're an illusionist, you're misdirecting the audience. They don't have time to really ponder on what happened in that funhouse other than what we're told happened, which is a traumatized little girl who saw something that was terrifying.
Now, here's the thing, and I will say, and I'm not saying like, oh my god, I'm like a fucking genius or anything, but I saw that first scene, and I was like, they switched, and of course I wasn't sure, but as soon as they showed that scene, which was still like towards kind of the beginning, because she's doing these like flashbacks or whatever, like she's traumatized. As soon as they did that scene where they're showing the parents with the psychologist, and she's like, oh, she's got PTSD, and they specifically say like, why won't she talk? And then the mom literally says, I just want my little girl back. I was like, they switched. I was like,
yeah.
it wasn't a twist to me.
Yeah,
it was like, so when they were like, you were the one, I was like, yeah, I've kind of know. And they even gave you like the hints too, like when the boy watches like the mom kill one of the twins like with the scissors or whatever, and she's like so menacing, or even the scene where she's like the mom's always kind of distant anyways, like she's like jagged, and like they try to explain away like, oh, she's scared to like go back to the beach, but I was like it wasn't a twist to me. It didn't surprise me at all. Like I
wouldn't say it was that surprising either, because I think that most people that have seen as many horror movies as we have had at least a suspicion, I would say. I would guess. But the way the movie plays out, like knowing that doesn't, and this is again, it's the same thing been harping on. Knowing that in advance does not obfuscate the point of the movie. You know what I mean?
It doesn't, except I was like, if this is like the OG girl, I was like, why is her? Because then I did start to doubt myself a little bit, because like as soon as the mom came in, she started to speak weird. I was like, well, why does she speak weird? Like why would that be a thing? So I don't know. That was kind of throwing me off a little bit too, because I was like, they switched, and it wasn't a surprise to me. But then like I started to like pick up on things. I was like, well, why does she talk so weird? If she's the OG, like she was like 9 or 10 by the time she got lost. Like, I don't know.
Do you guys have any like major points you want to make before we rate this thing?
No, we can rate it.
There's a lot we can talk about, but we can do it in Easter eggs and shit, or in trivia. I mean.
Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and rate it. Do you want to kick us off out of 5? How you feeling about Us?
Did you say my name? You glitched out.
Yeah, Randy.
Okay, I'm gonna go with a 5. I don't think that we're gonna see too many movies this year that are gonna rival this for top spot, and like we gave Get Out a 5, and I honestly I don't think I have a preference between the two. So just in thinking about Get Out and how much I love that, and what I rated that, I don't think that I don't like this movie less than Get Out, and so I can't really logically in my mind give it less than a 5. All the things that you pointed out, Juice, they're true, and they're things that you can ponder on. But to me, it's like it's like watching Star Wars and wondering why the lightsaber stops short, and that's fun to talk about, but it's not what the movie's about, and it's not, to me, like the logical nature of things like that matter more in movies that have less to say or are not so interested in saying what they want to say. That's not to say you can't do too much of that, like as we saw with The Farm a few weeks back, a movie that was so dead set on showing exactly what its point was the whole fucking movie that it was completely unbearably loud in terms of what it was trying to say. This movie doesn't, to me, suffer from that. It's got plenty of layers. It's got plenty of legitimate thrills and chills and shit. It's got fucking great acting, great cinematography. It is littered with references and Easter eggs and shit to just like sort of give you that little extra boost of fucking of pleasure as you're watching the movie. I just don't know what's not to like about this movie. I mean, unless like I have a violent disagreement with what the point of the movie is, or if I didn't find it scary or something. But none of that's true. I don't know. I don't have any critiques that I would consider all that substantial.
All right. 5 for Randy. Juice, how you feeling?
I don't think it's that good. I think it's good. I think it's good. And some of the things that we didn't get to mention that are good is the music in this, and even the sound, like the opening scene where they do the rabbits and it's that weird like opera kind of chanting thing. And they bring it back several times. I really liked that. And then, you know, throughout they had some things that worked really well, some that didn't as much. And it kind of harks back to my critique of like, oh, there has to be music and everything. Like, Good Vibrations, kind of, I don't know. And like the Fuck the Police, I don't know. Like some of that wasn't as effective as some of the other musical choices. The twist, it like so some of his things like felt like, oh, it's like a twist, but we all kind of knew it was coming. And, you know, I'm sure some people were surprised, but it feels not quite a sophomore slump, but it feels like the pressure of having to say something maybe got to him a little bit. I do feel like that was the precedent, and I feel like the movie suffered because of it. I think he made his point, and I understand the point, and I think it was a good point to make, and I think he made effective like symbolism and stuff like that, but I do think the movie suffered. Sometimes I was taken out of it because of those situations where I feel like maybe the writing was a little lazy, or he was trying to do so many things that he kind of maybe it wasn't as polished as it could because he was trying to do so much. I thought it was scary at times. It wasn't as scary as like a Hereditary. So like even as a horror movie, like there were some moments where I was like, you know, like they're creepy visuals and stuff like that, but there could have been more tension. I don't know. Acting was great all around. Everybody did a fantastic job. I liked the designs of the doppelgangers. It worked the men didn't strike me as much. The women, it was easy because it was easy to strip away their makeup, and their hair being really stringy and like they made it wet and stuff like that made them look crazier, and they kind of made their eyes darker. I didn't feel it as much with the guys. Now, like I know that one doppelganger was like wacky and kind of kooky and like that was a thing, but I didn't feel like the terror from the men ones or and like the disconnect from the men ones as much as I did with the women ones, except for the boy was all scarred up. That was effective. I think I'm gonna give this an overall 4-star. I do like Get Out more. I think it's tighter. I think it's better. I think it's more effective in even displaying the message that he was trying to display. I think it's overall tighter. And like I said, I don't think this is a sophomore slump necessarily, but I do think that some of it got to him. I do think, but still great. Still a good movie. A lot of great things to say about it. We could go on and on and on, but yeah, I'll give it a 4-star.
Cool. Yes, just some of the stuff that we didn't quite get to that I got 5 on it remix. That shit is sweet.
Oh yeah.
I'm not terribly familiar with that song apparently because everybody's talking about that and I just didn't pick up on it really.
Yeah,
Like I
it's
kind of know it by like audibly, but it's not a song that I've listened to extensively.
Rob, was she on beat? I didn't think she was like on beat when she was like, "Hey,
no,
catch the rhythm," and I was like, "Wait a second." And
yeah,
I
and
thought that might be a hint that she was like the
I've
doppelganger.
heard that
she
argument
was a
made.
little wonky, and
Okay.
I just wrote that off as it just being it's just a fucking movie. They didn't have the song playing when they shot it.
Yeah.
That's what I initially wrote it off as. But yeah, maybe it's just like she's the
That's
doppelganger. But
that's
she also like
Kubrickian
took
handling.
ballet and obviously had to have some
That's
rhythm
true.
to dance. So it doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't really matter to me, honestly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the song is pretty dope.
Yeah.
The cinematography is very gorgeous in this movie, man. Like all the scenes at the carnival on the boardwalk and stuff, I just like fell in love with that shit. I want to
Yeah.
go to there now, but in 1986. Also, the little kid wearing the Jaws T-shirt, like there's a bunch of very obvious nods to like other horror movies, and like the scene where they're sitting on the beach and stuff is like very reminiscent of Jaws, and they do like a really nice overhead shot of them walking on the beach, and you see their long shadows like connected
so cool.
to them as they walk. There's just like a lot of really smart choices cinematically, like that he made to like help assist tell this story.
There's a Brian
Yeah.
De Palma shot later in the movie. Did you notice that?
No,
Where
I
it's
did
like
not.
like it's showing Red, who is Adelaide's tethered person.
Yeah,
And she's like very, very tight close up on her with Adelaide in the far background.
nice.
And it's sort of like at a slight Dutch. It was really cool.
Nice. There's just a lot of pretty great things going on in here. The acting is like pretty much flawless, man. I mean, everybody does a great job in both characters that they portray. The little boy is super fucking creepy. Again, like the scene where the little boy walks backwards and catches on fire. It just the mythology. It's less important to me than the point that Jordan Peele's trying to make, but also it does get in the way of the point because it's distracting because there's such gaping holes in it. So if you're trying to follow the story he's telling you, which you are because you're watching the movie and paying attention, I assume, these holes pop up and they are confusing. They do get in the way of the point he's trying to make, I believe. But then again, like you step away from it, you have a moment to pick it apart, or at least I did, and it became much more clear to me. But like that one scene, which was a great scene, the little boy like walking backwards into the fire. It's like, why does that doppelganger all of a sudden have to do what the original does? But like the rest of the movie, like he just does.
Yeah, he's been
wants.
running
It's
around
like
on his
if-
own. Yeah.
If
you're
pulls the
controlling-
punch from that kill, for me, it's like it doesn't
Really?
make sense, but it's
Man.
cool, but it doesn't make
They
any
share
fucking sense.
they share a soul. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah,
and
but
they're
when
only sometimes.
But when the kid jumps in the car, it's not like all of a sudden the doppelganger's like being slung around through the air.
I know, but the kid, man, I think it was whatever the not the doppelganger version, but like the regular kid. I think he figured out somehow emotionally how to make that happen, and it's because he is a kid and he's explore like the way he thinks about the world probably has something to do with it, and so is this other kid. Like this other kid wants his life. Maybe he managed to exploit that. I don't know. You could explain that away, I think, but it certainly didn't like bother me in the moment because I was like, man, this is fucking nuts how this is panning out right now.
It did bother me in the moment, but the very ending shot with like all the people in the red jumpsuits holding hands like is it's a pretty like powerful image. It came off to me as being like almost a little too heavy-handed, like that they start with a commercial and then they end with that shot, so it like bookends the movie and it makes sense, but it's like it's almost like, do you fucking get the point? Like it's almost a little too much for me, honestly. And also like how do they coordinate that whole thing? I don't know, it does have problems for sure, but it's got, in my opinion, a really great message, and he pulls it off very well, and like just like the nuts and bolts of this movie are just fucking cool, even if like the monster mythology is a little fast and loose. But I'm gonna give it a 4 overall as well. That's gonna put our aggregate at a 4.3, which is very favorable. So let's go ahead and see what the critics and users have to say on the old Rotten Tomatoes.
All right.
Take it away.
All right, boys. This is a fresh pick, as you know, and hopefully, if you've been able to avoid like the commercials and everything, Randy, hopefully you've been able to avoid the Rotten Tomato score. But I don't know. We'll
Well,
see.
the fact that you're saying that makes me very highly suspicious of a specific number.
Oh, no. Okay, so let's get into us on the Rotten Tomatoes. There are a total, holy shit, of 365 critic reviews counted. I think that's the highest I've ever seen. I think that's the highest I've ever seen. Really, like 365.
Hasn't even been out a week yet.
Yeah, that's really high.
Hype train riding.
Everybody wants to talk about this movie. So let's go around the table and see what people have to say about this. 365. Randy, what do you think?
I mean, what you said earlier makes me think might be 100, but I'm also a little dubious of that because there's out of that many people to think that nobody gave it a negative.
Yeah,
I'm going 99. I'll go with 99.
99. All right, Bob, what you think? This is gonna be a game of inches.
It's like high as shit. I don't know. 96.
96. All right, the reverse of the 69. I like it. Rob's gonna take it. This movie is certainly certified fresh. It is at a 95%. And I think I was looking a little earlier. I think it's a little bullshit too, because I saw somebody that was like a top critic and they rated it it was rotten, but they gave it a 2.5 out of 4. And like I would think like that would be positive. And that's the thing, I guess it depends on like your rating system. One, why are you rating movies out of 4? Like what kind of animal are you?
Hey, well, Joe Bob does the 4 stars.
See, that's so weird to me. It doesn't feel right.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, 25% per star. I don't know.
That's
whatever.
It's doable.
Yeah, so either way, so some of that can be questionable. I did see one 2.5 out of 4, but it was like rotten, so that brings the overall down because it's really just whatever. But so 365. Let me scroll down and see if it'll tell me. Fresh 345, rotten 20. I did just see this top critic before we get to the critic consensus. He gave it a rating 1 out of 5. Let's see what this dude has to say. San Diego reader. The result is bloody but weirdly bloodless, a sort of thinky exercise in horror filmmaking. There's more juice in the laughs here than the scares.
I don't understand that.
That doesn't.
It's too even bloody from that, not bloody enough. It's
even from that critique. I don't get a 1.1 or a 1 out of 5. I don't know. The critic consensus is though for the overall with Jordan Peele's second inventive, ambitious horror film, we have seen how to beat the sophomore jinx, and it is us. Yeah. It was, I mean, here's the thing. I was critical of this movie, but I mean, I appreciate it. I'm glad that it exists. I'm happy that it exists just as a horror fan in general. And I don't think he hit like that sophomore slump. If this was his first movie, I'd still think oh damn, that was a good movie, So
not box office wise, not that that's an indicator really, but
yeah.
This movie money.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into the audience score and see what they have to say about it. User rating, much lower, but it is a new movie. 3,762 for us. So I'll let Bob go first. Rob, what do you think the audience had to say about this?
Probably high as shit again, I would imagine. I'll go with a 92.
92. All right. Or Randy.
Go 88.
88. Randy's gonna take it. overall audience score is 71%.
Ah.
Really?
71%. So there's a lot of racists out there.
Actually, that is not inaccurate.
No, well, I'm sure
After the
some.
Captain Marvel debacle, you're not wrong.
But yeah, yeah. I think this is gonna get to some people. I think not like the message overall is going to bother them. I think the horror aspect. I think the holes seem bigger to others in some cases. So yeah. 71%. So wait, what was our overall rating? 43. So 86%.
Yeah.
So, well, you know.
Oh,
Yeah, you know.
That's our Rotten Tomatoes segment. So
Thanks, Juice. You get that here every week. It's straight chilling. Cool. Let's go ahead and get into some trivia. Take it away, Randy.
we have a lot to cover. I made a few like observations. I heard some other people make some observations about like references and Easter eggs and things. Certainly, like there's a lot of people covering this, but I'm gonna try and go through some ones that I thought were either really cool and can't be sidestepped, or that I thought were a little less noticed. The Chud connection, obviously. There's a bunch of VHSs in that first scene. There was also Nightmare on Elm Street. There was The Right Stuff. And there was at least one more. I can't remember. Nightmare on Elm Street as an obvious, like, just a horror nod.
The Goonies was in there.
Oh, yeah, The Goonies, which is actually referenced a couple times in this movie.
Yeah.
The costume, this was pointed out by somebody, but this is a good observation, I think. You have a Michael Myers jumpsuit, and you have a Freddy Krueger style glove. I thought that was kind of interesting, and like the single glove, and somebody else, and this is also a little bit off the beaten path, but I think it's kind of a funny observation anyway. Michael Jackson, that Thriller shirt. Like, think about the Thriller video and how it shows Nice Michael and Evil Michael, Zombie Michael. He's wearing red. He's like known for his glove. I mean, there's something there too, probably.
Oh, yeah.
If you're thinking about Adelaide, like formulating a costume, I could think of looser strands that she could pull to make that happen, or red, I guess I should say.
Why did they have the glove? Did it mention?
Because
they all had one, right?
Their scissor in hand.
I think it was because it was creepy. Like,
okay, it was just
like
purely aesthetic. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it was an aesthetic choice. I also think you could make the argument that it was like a Freddy thing or a Michael Jackson. I don't know, but like I thought that was interesting. They also this was brought to my attention in the Slack channel. The Lost Boys is mentioned not by name, but indirectly in the opening
this trivia,
credits. Yeah, where they talk about how they're filming a movie down by the carousel. Do you want to go check it out when they're out at Santa Cruz? Which is,
they need some extras or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, they're filming a movie down over there.
I
do you want to go be an extra?
What that's about? I'll bet that's something, but I didn't really think about Lost Boys. That's definitely could have gone see the Sax Man instead of being stolen by untethered person.
I wish they would have had like that song like playing in the background or something, like really faint, like just would be like, oh my god.
Maybe once the Blu-ray comes out, we can amp up that sound and find it. Let's see. You have a lot of references to Jaws. Obviously, not just the T-shirt, but just the kind of the whole feeling of that scene at the beach, the missing child, all that stuff. There's some above the road sort of like I guess now it's more like drone shots, we call them, but like helicopter shots like you might see in The Shining with some like eerie music over it, a family traveling. You have people, this was kind of loose, but I thought it was interesting anyway. People breaking into your home, playing silly and fun music and killing you to it. That's a little bit Clockwork Orangey, you might think. A little Singing in the Rain. There's actually, I'm gonna read this piece of trivia before I go on to this next reference because this is interesting. Jordan Peele gave the cast 10 horror films to watch so they would have a shared language when filming. Dead Again, 91. The Shining, 1980. The Babadook, 14. It Follows, 14. A Tale of Two Sisters, 03. The Birds, 63. Funny Games, 97. Martyrs, 08. Let the Right One In, 08. And The Sixth Sense, 99. So what I wanted to key in on there is Funny Games, because there are some substantial golf club kills in this fucking movie.
Yeah.
So there, yeah, that was fun. What else do we got? The Kid's Mask. I'm not sure, but I think it's a Ben Cooper mask. Are you guys familiar with that brand? The Ben Cooper masks? Sort of like
the werewolf kid mask,
it's
or
sort
the
of like
white
a
mask?
vintage, no, the werewolf mask.
Okay.
It's like a vintage Halloween sort of thing. I'm not sure that that's what it is, but it looks a lot like one. I'm sure it was intentional to at least make it look. It's sort of like it's like a vintagey thing. There's a lot of themes in this movie, not the least of which is the number 11, which just taken at face value is 2 singles, 2 doubles. There's 11:11, Jeremiah 11:11, which states, "Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring evil upon them, which they shall not be able to escape. And though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them." So, and that's specifically about some people that God is smiting for having forgotten their obligations to him. So think about that in relation to the tethered and like what they're doing. They've been forgotten. They've been abandoned. Nobody has any obligation to them as far as they know. And they're sick of that shit. So they're coming out to smite you.
Sick of that shit, bitch.
Sick of that shit. There's a lot of like
about to get your scissor on.
Well, that's mixed signals, but okay.
Scissor me timbers.
Scissor me Xerxes.
There's just 11s all throughout this movie too. The game that Winston's watching is 11-11. The ambulance number is 11-11. The Thriller T-shirt is prize number 11. This is kind of a loose one too, which I thought was interesting though. Did you guys notice the Black Flag T-shirts in this movie?
Yeah. Oh well, I saw the guy who was a carny at the Whack-A-Mole had a Black Flag shirt on.
Yeah,
I don't know the other one.
There was another carny in the modern day that also had one. It was a little different one.
Yeah.
And I wondered what that was about in the theater. But the only theory I've heard, which I think is interesting, is talking about the Black Flag logo, the 4 bars, which could also be seen as 11-11. I thought that was pretty fucking cool. And there's also obviously 4 individuals, 4 doubles that show up on these people's lawn.
Yeah.
So you could look at it that way too. There's just tons of that, and I'm sure that people will go insane trying to figure out all of them or trying to find ones that aren't there. Let's see. There's a lot of foreshadowing. There's like Rob, you mentioned that shot of them with shadows on the beach. The tethered call themselves their shadows, so that's some foreshadowing. There's Hands Across America commercial, obviously. The Haida key. This is a point that was made that interesting to the point of logic. The Haida key.
Yeah.
They Red finds that immediately, and of course she does because she's fucking been there before.
Yeah.
I thought that was
yeah.
Let's see what else. I just want my little girl back. The fluoride conspiracy. So there's already a government conspiracy about controlling people mentioned at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
The movie's called Us. Some people have compared that to US because it's such an American-centric film, which I think works fine. Whack-A-Mole. Just think about that for a second. Whack-A-Mole.
Coming up out of the ground.
Yep. There is an ambulance toy that is seen quite a bit in the early parts of the movie, and they escape in an ambulance. So there's a lot of these sort of things. We talked about logistical nitpicks. Now let's get to just straight ahead trivia. Setting aside all those awesome fucking movies that he made them watch, I hope the kids didn't watch fucking Martyrs. But whatever.
Yeah.
Let's see. In an interview with Polygon, Peele also admits that there's a little personal thing to the inclusion of Chud, which is that his girlfriend's father directed Chud.
His girlfriend's father directed Chud. All right. Chud is related to Bud the Chud, right?
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Chud 2.
That's Chud 2.
Which is basically like Troll 2 in that it's a script they put that name on.
It's the good one.
Yeah.
That's what I've actually never seen Chud, but as soon as I saw Chud, I thought Bud the Chud because you guys love that shit.
Well,
I don't even know what Bud the Chud is.
Love to make fun.
Bud the Chud is horrible.
Bud the Chud
is pretty cool though.
It's basically like Encino Man, but terrible and with a zombie instead of Ant-Man.
Dude, Encino
less
Man.
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, and less Pauly Shore, and somehow that's a detriment. Let's Let's see.
Oh, Pauly Shore.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
like Pauly Shore.
Making
no.
copies.
What? That's not.
The
That is
Leaning
not
Tower
Pauly
of
Shore.
Jesus.
That's Pauly Shore. Not Rob
Wait,
Schneider.
isn't it Pauly Shore making copies?
No, that's Rob Schneider. The Schneids.
Is it?
Yeah, it's SNL. Doesn't matter.
Okay. My bad. My bad. Shit, I fucked
But-
that up.
Tower of Cheesa is definitely. Was
Yeah,
that his
okay.
voice?
I think
Or was
so.
it just a reference to him?
Oh, maybe. I don't
can't-
know.
Anyway, goofy movie. Underrated movie.
Goofy movie's great.
Director Jordan Peele provides another voice cameo in this movie. Did you guys catch it?
No.
There's at the very beginning, as you're walking into that fun house, you hear a little narration. Oh, you're walking through the woods. Come find me, sort of shit. For the find yourself, by the way.
Yeah, that was.
So he was also like, and it's a similar capacity as the last movie where he's doing a sort of like a high-end narration sort of thing, or
Also, real quick, so that fun house was on the beach. Literally, she walks from the beach to the fun house, and that fun house is what leads to the escalator, which goes into this huge assortment of tunnels. That shit's on the beach. We live in Florida. We know you can't have a fucking basement on the beach. That's some bullshit, but whatever.
that building does not actually exist. So you I don't know. Probably not. I don't.
That's
I'm
some
sure
bullshit.
I'd have to talk to an expert in construction, like our founders, but I don't know. The words "Get Out" are seen in this movie, carved into the entrance of the Hall of Mirrors. I thought that was interesting. There's a fast food chain that they eat from. It's called Copper Pots. Pretty fun reference to Chester Copperpot of Goonies fame.
Nice.
The skeleton and
Nice.
failure to get One-Eyed Willie's gold. Also, in reference to the Goonies, you guys caught Lupita's line, right? Did you guys catch that? Catch Red?
Yes, it's our time up here.
Yeah, it's like it's our time up there, which is a Sean Astin line from that movie. And is that Sean Astin or is that Feldman?
I think it's Sean Astin.
I think it's Astin, yeah. I was in the movie, like I immediately recognized that. I was like, is she gonna say the whole thing or just that one bit? Is she gonna do the somber repeat? She didn't do it. That's probably for the best. Let's see. During the scene in the psychologist's office, young Adelaide is shown organizing toy animals in a straight line in the sand pit, foreshadowing Red's plan to have the tethered stand hand in hand across America, beginning at the Santa Cruz beach. The last toy animal Adelaide places in the line is a white rabbit, which is interesting because that Red, or like Adelaide, like the replacement Adelaide, is not the one who organizes that. It's Red who does that. So they're coming from some sort of shared experience. I mean, the soul thing, like ESP, whatever you want to attribute it to, they obviously have some similar information, or at least some similar foundations. But that was fucking interesting. I think that's about it. There's plenty more. There's just so much in this movie that you can't really cover it all, and plenty of media outlets that are paid to do this have tried. So fucking bother them.
That's all you get. Cool. Yeah, we're gonna skip the news this evening. So that's gonna do it for us here at Straight Chilling. We got no voicemails, and honestly, I don't know that there's a cooter in this.
I was just about to say, I don't think there's a cooter.
Yeah.
Heidecker maybe, but
yeah, I know. Sometimes we play a little
just kind of a
fast and
dick.
loose with the cooter title,
Well, his
but truly,
wife was kind of a dick too. Like,
yeah,
but being
Well.
a dick isn't. I mean,
Yeah.
Space Army
He wasn't a-
alone.
yeah. I don't really see a cooter in it. If you think we're wrong, let us know. And if you do want to call and leave us a voicemail, you can do that at 904-638-3231. That's it for us here at Straight Chilling headquarters this week. We're going to be back next week with a brand new episode. We're going to be talking about the poll pick winner for March, the theme of which was movies that Andy will hate, and the winner was House of Wax.
I have to watch that tonight.
House of
Oh,
I'm not going to have
Wax.
another opportunity. Shit.
Enjoy.
and I will be out. Headed to France, man. I can't.
Visiting-
Frank's, man. I can't do it.
You're gonna be visiting Gay Paris.
What?
Gay, you never Paris?
Paris. It's called Gay Paris in
Gay
Oh,
Paris.
really?
cartoons and shit.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm gonna
okay.
be getting my baguettes on, getting my fromage on.
Well, you gotta bag it.
I got a baguette the fromage, you
No
know.
diggity.
Get your saucy on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Get your
Saucy
pamplemousse on.
dude, I'm doing it. But I already phoned in my review. I went ahead and covered it.
Yeah.
Like a goddamn professional over here.
I got it. Until next week, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. It's a really easy way for you to support the show. It'll only cost you a couple minutes of your time. Every time you give us a rating and a review, it helps people find the show that don't know we exist. And it really, really, really does help us, and we love that shit. You can find us on fucking Twitter at str8_chilling. We're on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. Hit us up on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/straightchillingpodcast. Hit us up on Twitch. Don't forget about the Joe Bob live watch this Friday. That shit's going to be fun. Starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to post that link on our Facebook page just before the show starts. I think that's everything. So, as always, until next week, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling. All right.
Our I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll try to take. I guess I should take my straight chilling